Hello everyone, this is Flo. You might know me from the Great War channel.
And I'm Bismarck from Military Aviation History.
Behind us, is an ME-109E, right? That's an E.
Yes.
ME-109, one of my favorite airplanes of all time. Actually one of the airplanes that got me into history. I drew it as a kid a lot and had some photo things about it. And this is a early war variant, yes, from 1938.
Yes.
But it was produced throughout the war.
Yes. Well, the 109 was produced throughout the war.
But
yes.
So how can I actually differentiate the different 109 variants?
Okay. So there's quite a few sort of clues you can look at in a 109 to sort of find the version that you're looking for. One of the most drastic departures from the E model that we have here, of course, happens when we transition to the F. And I'll point out some of the major changes there. There's of course a lot of changes, but we'll stick with the major ones just now. So if we already look at the aircraft, so this one was produced indeed for 38, and it took part in the Spanish Civil War. It was later used by then the Spanish Air Force after that war finished. One of the first giveaways is of course the propeller hub with that prominent hole in there. In later versions that would be modeled a lot more aerodynamically. The propeller is different as well, but that's for a different story. And as we transition closer, again, sort of a minor detail really, but the gear actually was strengthened as well and got slightly bigger. But if you don't have a measuring tape with you, you wouldn't know. As we then move on to the mid-wing section, we have the MGFF, which is a 20mm cannon. Later E models, this is an E3. Actually, this is an E1 and an E3 because the Spanish sort of built various aircraft into one to keep this one flying. But this specific model, E3, would have an MGFF. Later on, that would be changed to an MGFF-M, but that was changed. This cannon completely disappears in the F version and beyond that. However, the Germans go back to a wing-mounted 20mm cannon in the form of a gun pot later on with the F and also the Gustav models. Stats, of course, these stay relatively consistent throughout the time that the ME-109 or the BF-109, it's the same aircraft, I have a video about this, were built. And as we then transition to the rear section of the wing, now if we look at the ailerons and the flaps, there's also some changes there because the ribs in the flaps, they actually increase. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, in later versions there's more ribs there. Again, minor detail, but you'll find it. Another detail there, the oil cooler changes, the cooling on the overall engine changes. There's also cooling below the wings on either side, those also change. And of course the cockpit is a big giveaway as well. It becomes a lot more square and tapered off. And of course later on versions would also have, I wouldn't call it a bubble top because it really isn't, but it does get a little bit more rounded with the Airlerhaube, and that is also a change. Then, as we move along the fuselage, again, minor differences there throughout the different versions. This bracing strut on the elevator completely disappears after the Emil model. They did have problems with the stability of the tailplane and the structural integrity of the wing itself. But with the F4 model, this bracing strut completely disappears. In fact, on the F2 model and the F1 model, where this was a problem, there were these metal stripes that were added to the tail to just keep that structural integrity instead of the bracing strut there. Again, slight changes to the tail section, to the rudder, to the vertical stabilizer as well. And then as we move around to the other side of the aircraft, again, minor detail again, the tail wheel does change size and becomes bigger to actually absorb the impact of landing with the more heavier designs that later on appear. And then one of the changes we also see appearing with some of the later models is there will be a cutaway here, just here, to house a signal cannon, a signal gun, that is, although it was apparently not fitted to all aircraft as far as I know. And then as we just move on, between the 109 and the ME-262, complete opposites of course, but quite a drastic, nice look at essentially the transition from what the Germans had early on in the war, 38, 39, of course, the Second World War starts, to then the end in 1945 with the ME-262. And this is a very nice sort of assortment that we have here in the Flugwerft Schleißheim near Munich. And then we also come to the engine. The engine, of course, completely changes with the different models. We have a DB601 here that then on gets upgraded to DB605 and so on. The radiator changes as well, as do the inflow. And yeah, those are sort of the main changes you want to look out for. We've got radio changes, antenna changes, and I hope that answers your question, so.
It does, very thoroughly.
Might I add something here? I borrow your mic for a sec. So, if I'm not mistaken, the easiest way to determine if it's an early or late war is basically if it has a round canopy or not, and if it has guns in the wings.
Yes,
more or less.
Or the prop hub.
Or the prop hub. So basically, because there were a lot of details there which I don't know at all, but I think these 2 or 3 determinings. So for the first look, because usually you want to determine basically early war, late war, mid war, something like that, you can most easily determine with that.
Do you have the prop hub of the hull? Do you have the MGFF in the wing? Do you have the bracing strut on the tail? Do you have this rather old looking canopy? There we go.
Because that's important if you play Warfare sometimes. That's what I learned.
Well, we want to thank the Flugwerft Schleißheim, of course, for hosting us here.
Not just for filming this, but for filming a lot of interesting things.
So I film my Inside the Cockpits here, 7 episodes coming up. Looking forward to putting those out. And of course, you guys filmed
something for 16 Days in Berlin with Chris and with Bernhard. So this will be exciting.
And then there's Tony and Jesse in the corner. All right. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Bye-bye.
See you in the skies.
You just took the words out of my mouth.